idea that you can walk out your front door, you can circle the world, and you can come back to your front door and walk in your back door. And this idea like how great a journey that would be, how you would change between, if you make that great journey, how much you would change between walking out your front door and the time you walk in your back door. And when you walk back in, a different person. Actually, just as an aside, if you guys like comics and graphic novels, there's one I would recommend called Around the World by Matt Phelan. And it's the story of 3 people who did this exact thing. They circled the Earth. They circumnavigated. And it's in very early ways and very early. One of the guys was the first guy who went around the world on a bicycle. And it was back in the days when the bicycles had those really big front wheels. They weren't like super comfortable mountain bikes or anything like that. They were like they were a little difficult to ride, but he went around the world in one, except for the parts where you have to be on the water. Anyway, just a brief pause for a book recommendation. So Zeta the Space Girl starts in this field. These 2 kids coming home from school. There's Zeta and Joseph. You can see that Zeta has stolen Joseph's notebook, and Joseph is trying to keep up, but not doing a great job of it. And what they find on the way home is they find a meteorite crater, and Zeta's curious about it immediately. She makes Joseph help her down into the crater. And inside, she finds a button. And so we immediately have a story question here. This big red button, and the story question is obviously, do you push the big red button, or do you leave it alone? Well, different people have different answers to this question. You can see the difference between Zeta and Joseph right here. And Zeta says, I think we should push the button. Joseph says, what? No, don't. And unfortunately, Zeta knocks Joseph down and sits on it and pushes it. And at first, nothing happens, but then
what I tell you,
this big gateway opens up in the sky, and these tentacles come through, and they grab Joseph. And the last thing Zeta hears is Joseph calling for help. She's caused some problems, and now she's shocked, panicked. And she runs. She tries to run away from what she said. She runs into the woods. No, and it doesn't work for her either. Yeah, you're right. Trying to run away from the problems never quite works. So she goes back to the button. She pushes it again. The portal opens up, and here we have a very important moment. You see she's frightened by this, but she makes a decision. You can see her making that decision. She jumps through, and now in this field where there were once 2 kids, there are no kittens. And so Zeta spins between the worlds. She lands on an alien world. You see, she's surrounded by weird. Yeah. So she freaks out, but then she embarks on this journey to find her friends. And things get worse and worse as people along the way. And she ends up trying to get back to Earth. So that's the beginning of Zeta the Space Girl there. So that's just a brief introduction to take a look at these comics and see where I'm coming from. But I wanted to share with you guys kind of quickly some of the things that I keep in mind when I'm making comics. So, all right. So, So you put the Zeta books together. The past couple of years, I've made like 600 pages of comics. And I started out and I didn't quite know exactly what I was doing. And I learned a lot as I went. And I'm going to share with you guys 3 kind of key things that I keep in mind when I'm storytelling in this medium. And the first thing I think about is called
Bless you.
Two pictures, one story. This is the idea of how comics works, why comics work, why putting pictures next to each other works as a storytelling medium. So the idea is, this builds on the idea of what our brains want to do anyway. Our brains are kind of wired to find meaning in pictures. And when we see pictures next to each other, we want to make connections between them. That's what we do with our mind. We're always looking for connections between things. And it's what helps us figure things out. And we use that thing that our brains are doing anyway in comics by putting pictures next to one another and then trusting our reader to make those connections between pictures and figure it out. So I've got 2 boxes here. I'm going to give you an example. And we'll start this with a button as well. Right? Farm. There's a button. And the corner of another little button there, so it looks like a control panel.
You're good.
Oh, well, thank you. We'll do a little better later on. This is not my best. But here we've got a hand coming out. So I'm going to push this button, and I'm going to draw us another picture where we see if there's any connection. It helps to make sound effects. Okay, so what's happening here? What do we got going on? Yeah, what's happening?
Someone was coming up with a big red button.
Oh, somebody made this mistake, didn't they? But we automatically though say this happens and this happens, right? We're putting these pictures next to each other, and so the magic bit happens in between. The really good part happens because our brains fill in this middle part. We don't have to show the wire going over the volcano. We don't have to show every little moment. Our brains fill that in, and that's kind of the magic bit about comics, is that what we're showing is what you can trust your readers to make links between the images. And another thing I was telling another group, and it's interesting, and I think it's worth mentioning, is that these different kinds of art are like something that really gets us sometime in art, something that really grabs us, is when an art shows something that it doesn't have itself. By which I mean like with painting, you can take a 2-dimensional surface, you can take a flat surface and show it 3-dimensional. So we're painting with a very flat, we have a little flat canvas, right? And this surface is 2-dimensional, but you're painting, you paint like a tree, beautiful tree in the wind. And you can like be shown into this like 3-dimensional image, but the painting itself is 2-dimensional. And so that's the neat thing about painting. And then we have sculpture, where some of the great stuff marble or stone show things are very soft. Or you're using something very hard to show you like flesh, softness, and folds of fabric that are very soft. And the better they do that, the more kind of justified the art. So in comics, what we are showing that it doesn't have is time. So we could do something like this. 1, 2, 3. And you see these pictures we see all at once. sun's going down. So anyway, best I could do it. We've got, so we can show like a whole day in one instant, right? So you guys can take this in just an instant, but we've shown kind of a long period. So that's this idea of two pictures, one story. But if you go back to that first thing, those first two pictures we drew up, those are pictures that I decided to show. But I also brought us a little experiment to try. Because in this one I wrote the figure and the volcano. I just decided two pictures that kind of go together, right? But a lot of times this works where we can draw out random images, and these are my story cards. They all have, each of these cards has a picture on it. And we can draw these random images and see if we get nonsense or if we get some immediate connection. And it's kind of cool to I found that more often than not, we get some kind of silly story out of it.
So we're gonna draw a picture, or?
No. We're gonna draw. We're not draw. I mean, draw like you draw a card. So who wants to draw one?
I do.
Let's try this. Let's try. You go ahead and pull one out of there. Anything you want. There you go. Now hold on to that for a minute. And yeah, go for it. There you go. Let's see what you got. Okay, pretty good. Pretty good. Oh man. Okay, this will work. I'm thinking. Okay, so we have here. What do we got? Earth. We've got Earth, and then we've got this. Somebody about to step on a banana peel.
Somebody stepping on a banana.
This looks like the beginning of a story. This looks like somewhere on Earth, a man is about to step on a banana peel. It's very, very close. Yes. Let's try again. Anybody over here? Very well done. Good. Hold on to that. I'm going to come over to. Okay. Ready? Okay. We have a fellow who's crying, and then we have a some kind of weird hero. Or am I becoming one still? What's your idea?
I'm thinking that this man is sad that the hero is leaving.
Oh, okay. See, I was thinking he was crying. It was, and this hero was like, I hear tears.
I just think you didn't make the job.
This hero is going to be like the comforter.
He comforts the emo children.
No. What has to do is the superhero didn't make the job.
Hold on to that.
Took a little late. Nothing soon. Yeah.
Gotcha. We'll go one more time. Oh, since we already used volcano, can we use something else? That was my fault. Oh, good. All right.
I always draw.
All right, here we go. You ready? Okay. We have, what do we have here? A lady fallen.
This superhero could do it.
Not a superhero would be good, but I think we have a heroic robot.
Or the robot poster.
Yeah, the robot's a crock.
Or, you know, the other one that I said no to was, since we already used it, was this volcano. So we could do like this volcano. It's like, and it like erupts like, yeah, falling down.
Oh my god.
All right. What's your other idea for the robot? That would be a sad story. I don't know if I like it. All right, so let's move along to the next situation. So the next thing I like to concentrate on, we've got two pictures, one story. We've got the idea that our brains like to put together. The second thing I keep in mind is about trying to, you know, we were talking about words and pictures and having it in the same space, and I like to make sure that the art is
Explain.
It's like a dance between words and pictures. It's so close, right? And they don't want to step on each other's toes. And the way I keep keep that from happening, or something that I rely on to keep that from happening, is something I call power of gesture. Who said gesture already? That's you were about to say it. Yeah.
You're like, yep.
Okay, so the power of gesture, and what is? I see you guys are already pretty familiar with what gesture is. What's gesture?
Like.
Okay. Yes. Like. Well, when you raise your hand, you're yeah.
It's like an action that you do that indicates something.
Yeah. It's communicating.
It's when you're high.
Communicating with your body. And so when you raise your hand, you are gesturing a simple message. Please pick me. You can gesture other simple ideas. Please follow me. Right? What about stop? Stop. Right? And we're also unconsciously gesturing with our bodies almost all the time, right? So we are, even when we're not thinking about it, we're kind of gesturing how we feel with our bodies. We're communicating with this body language. We have like, and we can do it in an extreme way, almost in an acting way. We're like sadness, or bravery, like heroic, anger, or like love, right? So all these things are like, and I try in my comics to try to capture this as much as I can, because of this premium of space, because we don't have unlimited space in comics. So the idea is like, we're going to have two guys. I'm going to illustrate this for you. Here's our first guy. Okay, his arms are really long armed guy. And he says, I am. Even put little eyes on it. So here's the example. Here's my example. We've got a premium of space. We want to make sure the words and the pictures are working together as best as they possibly can. And in this instance, I don't think that they are. I think that we need to use this. We want to use this space to tell more of the story. So we want to communicate as much about this guy as we can in one instance by really pushing that gesture and making us know how he feels. So I'm going to redraw him, and we're going to see. So I'm going to try to draw him so that in an instant, just the first glance of looking at a picture, we know how angry he is. Okay. So I'm going to try this again. These are his really angry eyes here. Super angry, really angry, open mouth. Cheek are like his hair is like out of control. He's got spit coming out of his mouth. Did you say it was delightful? We're going to change his stripes from straight across to jagged to show his emotion. We're going to do really angry arm expression. Shouting now. And we're going to put his feet up like this. Here we go. Off the ground. He's so angry. A little bit of sweat. Okay, so here he is, and now does he have to say how he feels, or do you kind of already know? You've got an idea, right? So now we can use this space here to tell a little bit more about what's going on. So we will be saying...
Hey, it's America.
Welcome.
Starts that by the Cali of him goes back.
We did a sad story this time, but still, you get the idea.
My
We're at
cheeseburger.
a table with 3.
And how it can be this really powerful tool. And so two more things I want to say about gesture is practicing gesture helps me out a lot when I'm writing scenes. Sometimes I actually just get up out of my chair and kind of just feel out the actions of the characters, and really get kind of comfortable with this idea of gesture. Another thing, though, that I want to show you is I'm going to give us 3 objects here to show you that it's not just characters that have gesture. Even your lines can have a gesture to them, and can communicate some kind of thing just through the motion of the lines. We have like different lines are different. This is like a wandering, curious line, right? And this is a kind of line that's kind of angry. I can actually use that to talk, right? And then we have so here's our 3 objects, and we can see what we think about them. What is this object?
Looks like it's hot.
Yeah, like it's warm, right? So we'll make that a little warm loaf of bread. And then this object here will be like,
Oh, Steve.
Tornado.
Okay.
oh yeah. I'm going for stinky. I was hoping this one would be like a rotten egg.
The first one looks.
And then this one, let's try this one.
Shiny.
Of the golden egg.
But anyway, so you see we can communicate gesture even through line and tell something about things just by the lines and surrounding them. So for me that helps. That's something that idea of visual communication and the idea of using gesture to communicate emotion and stuff. It really helps get the words and the pictures to gel and to dance together well. Third thing is what I call I love this marker. It's like the best marker I've had all day. I'm going to think, okay, Sharpie flip chart marker.
You can keep it.
Oh, I'm just remembering the brand, so we go, oh, Sharpie flip chart. This is perfect. Okay, so drawing from life, right? Okay, so we've gone from like the mechanical, like the 2 pictures, 1 story, then we've gone to which is how comics works. Then we've gone to the getting the words together, right?
Heard that in like an interview with
Drawing from life.
yeah.
Yeah, and because I think this is one of the most important, except it's very broad. So the idea of drawing from life, there's 2 parts to it. And one, there's an art part and a storyteller's part. So the art part is this idea that, you have all your influences, you have your art influences. For me it's like Sendak, Calvin, Hobbes. I'm still fascinated by the Italian masters and their paintings, and the Miyazaki, the Studio Ghibli movies, like Spirited Away. These things that you really, yeah, right. And you can draw from all these inspirations. It's really good. But it helps. One thing you don't want to forget as an artist is to go straight to the thing itself once in a while, or as often as you can. I always find myself learning a little more so here's our little artist. She's getting ready to draw. And I always find out, so she could go to draw a cat, and she could be looking up her favorite artists drawing of a cat, for her inspiration of cat drawings, right? But somewhere along the line, that great artist went to the cat itself and drew the cat. So this girl is going to be drawing like this, and this artist went straight to the cat. So sometimes you want to cut out the middleman and go straight to the thing itself in your drawing. And I found that when I do that, I always end up learning a little bit more. And the reason for this is, the reason for this is, So remember when we were talking about how our brains like to make connections between images? Another thing we do is we take our images, we break images down very easily. We're kind of wired to make things into parts. So we have a face, right? And how do you draw a face? You make a shape, and then you put parts on that shape. Eye, a nose, a mouth, eyebrows, sometimes on both top and bottom. Something like that, right? But when you start looking, like, part of art, like this kind of art is training your eyes, and then you start to realize, like, that sometimes, like, when you start looking at faces are a good example. They end up being patterns of light and dark, rather than patterns of light and dark rather than a collection of parts, like patterns of light and shadow. Well, it's all in your eyes. That's kind of the point. It's training your eye, not in the hand. Most of it's about looking. Yeah, so patterns of light and dark.
Eco Explorers will be meeting after school on Tuesday. We will have a guest speaker from the Honey Exchange and a traveling beehive. All are welcome to attend. See you there.